So let me take you back to 2022. So that's when, of course, at the end of the year, ChatGPT got pretty big, and then slowly, as you might see, AI was everywhere, and then a lot of like different consumer products came out, and Perplexity was one of those big consumer products that came out, and with the goal of just competing against Google, and they wanted to make search as the new AI search and make it a little bit more easier, as well as challenge Google to make their search and fix their search. So 2 years from then to now, Perplexity is one of the I guess the second most used consumer product for search right now, and they also have been raising a lot of round of funding, and they also had their CEO actually come join us at Kellogg last year for India Business Conference. So I think if you're interested in working in AI, this is definitely a really, really good product as well as company to kind of look into. This year, my goal is to help the team and also to see how we can take the AI agent technology, which is pretty much having an autonomous agent that can like do tasks for you automatically. To a more commercial product. So Perplexity just launched their Comet product this year, which is actually taking off quite well, and they just launched it to everybody this week for free. So I wanted to kind of touch base on this product specifically, but also just AI agents in general. And then also in the end, I want to kind of talk a little bit more about the monetization piece, because that's something that you'll learn a lot in different classes at Northwestern, whether it's product management, whether it's Mark's class, tech strategy, and also organizing for innovation. So those kind of strategy on how Perplexity use their kind of go to market in a way to make it a little bit more limited approach, as well as show people like um, how do you use something that's new and pay for it and then slowly create hype around it. So that's what I want to talk about today. So let's dive deep into this. What is Comet? So Comet is Perplexity's product. As I was talking about, it's their AI powered web browser, and it helps you redefine how you interface with internet. So essentially it's a Chrome extension as well as a standalone app that they have built, and you pretty much download it on your computer, and just like you would use any chat gpt or any product, you would just give it a prompt to use your screen and then help you with your tasks. So I actually wanted to kind of add this here because I used Perplexity to make my presentation as well. So it's a really, really good tool, and it's growing very quickly as well as changing very quickly. So there's a lot of new features that's get added every week, and because of how quickly it's moving, the different kind of things that you could do with it is also becoming very easy. So I want you all to use Perplexity, use AI, because definitely a lot of the things that you will learn in the program is about how do you not rebuild a wheel, because there's a lot of different things out there and there's a lot of different technologies already existing. So it's all about how do you use it for your use case. So make AI your friend, don't rely on it, but also make sure that you're using these different new technologies to kind of learn and grow as a professional, because when you are entering the field as well as the profession, it's going to look very different than what you were doing, let's say 2 years back or 3 years back. And then the new 10 years from now is also going to look very different. So um, currently, as I wanted to, as we have stats here, currently we have 1 million plus student users, we have 1 billion plus queries, and we also invested in free student access, which costed about $1 billion. So I'm not sure if you all know, but you all get 1 year free student access for Perplexity. And funny enough, Professor Birju Shah from the product management is also actually working with them right now and trying to understand how to use Comet for his classes. So I saw him on one of the calls with the team recently. So there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of new things, and I just want you to kind of get a little bit more hands-on on it. So Comet has changed how people search, and it has Comet users perform 3x more queries per day and find different answers. And I also want to mention this, like when they originally launched Comet, they had 1 million users on the wait list, and they were actually sending out 50K invites per day. So they made it a little bit more limited at the beginning, where everybody who was going to sign up had to put their email in a wait list, and then they would slowly roll it out. And then they released a new pricing model, which was going to be competing against OpenAI, and they launched a whole new tier for $200 a month for enterprises who want to test their Comet, as well as get a little bit more API access and more credits to be able to use it for on their enterprise products. But as I was saying, this week they launched it for everybody for free, so now everybody has access to this. So if you don't want to take my word for it, I have a really nice slide on it talks about all the great legends in the field. Here's the CEO of Shopify, CEO of HubSpot, some really, really big names in the tech journalism, and they all have really, really loved this product. They also have utilized it. And I know a lot of you are from India. A new use case just came out where Comet is being used to do trading for Zerodha, which is essentially Robinhood of India. So there's a lot of different use cases that's coming out, and people really do love it. So in the next few slides, I just want to kind of give you a little bit more examples on how you can use it on your day to day. So for example, this one is I'm on Canvas and I have a class and I there's a lot of different notes, but I'm not sure where to start. How do I actually summarize the different lectures that's going on? There's 100 plus slides. There's a lot of content, and I feel a little bit overwhelmed. So what do I do? So you'll see a quick video here to kind of like show you how you can actually leverage this agent. So essentially, you're on Canvas, we are summarizing the notes on different slides. What the agent is doing, it's going to go into each and every file, and it's going to summarize it for you and create different summaries. And essentially, you can also change the different models that you're using here. You have access to the latest and the greatest ChatGPT 5, open ChatGPT thinking. You got the new Cloud Sonnet models and all that. So that's one of the use cases. Next use case, for example, can you edit and create references for your documents? So essentially, to make sure that you are citing the words, citing the pages correctly, and when you're writing papers, you are giving credit to the people whose work you're using. You have to make sure that you're citing that. So, for example, in this case, it's writing a report and it's asking. Comet to add references to this report. And again, all of it is done by the agent. Nothing is being done by the human here. So next, as I was saying, I've used the agent to build the slide deck as well. So how do you do that? So all it did is open Google Slides, and what I said is fill in this slide template with information on Perplexity AI, and it's essentially going into the Google Slides and slide by slide adding different features as well as different content on it for people to be able to, for sorry, the user to be able to use that for his presentation. Next use case, I actually also use it for my personal work, some of the different projects that I work on. So one of the examples that I use it on is like using it for my email productivity. A lot of times I get a lot of emails and I don't want to reply to it. So you can actually just create a shortcut in Comet where you just press backslash email and it will connect to your Gmail account and then automatically summarize your emails, kind of tell you like what's going on in the last 1 week in your inbox. Is there anything that you missed out on? And actually now you can also use it as a way to reply and talk to people. Again, same thing here. An example, go to my Outlook inbox and give me an overview of all my emails from the past week. Tell me what I need to get done, due dates and upcoming events, and only look through this week's column. So again, it's going through my Outlook and finding all the different opportunities that I might have missed, all the different emails that I forgot to read, and also giving me a little bit more summary on what I need to do next. You can also use it for scheduling meetings, and I've also used it to actually schedule like different calls with people, especially if you are working with a lot of different team members in your group projects. It's a really good way to kind of use Comet and the agent to help you schedule your meetings and also make sure that you're staying productive. And it also helps you actually boost your productivity by telling you, okay, you might have too many meetings this week, or you don't have a lot of meetings. So you actually have a lot of time to focus and do the work. So these are a lot of different examples. I don't want to spend a lot of time on a lot of these. I actually want to do a real demo of different things. Um, So I actually have Perplexity Agent open here. Essentially, this is the standalone app, and this is how it looks like when you open Perplexity Agent. So I just want to show you one of the, I guess, token examples they have is, um, let's see this one. I was trying this one. So I'm going to do open Google Maps and build a walking route to tech building in Evanston, Northwestern campus. My
Do you need special hardware to run this locally, or can you run this on any rig?
You don't need any special hardware. You can run it on pretty much anything. And we were actually discussing this last night with some of my friends that like they must be burning a lot of cash right now because the compute power that goes behind this is probably like a lot. So I think essentially they are just hosting all the models on their own cloud, and this is their standalone kind of app that accesses their models. So I have a basic MacBook Air and it works on it, and I've tested on like a few Windows machines as well, and it works on that. And then you don't need the standalone app. You can just go on perplexity.ai and also use the agent from there.
So it's a
So
little bit more like Copilot and not like LM Studio. LM Studio, you're running the whole thing locally, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's a more of an agent, a co-pilot essentially that
Yeah,
will
yeah.
work for you.
Yeah, Copilot is useless without the internet, right? So,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, yeah. So those are like some of the basic slides that I wanted to talk about. I want to take a pause and kind of open it up to people if they have any questions before we kind of like open it for discussions, because I did want to get some of your thoughts on why do you think this product is becoming popular and where do you think AI agents are going? Jad, I see you are here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Karan?
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to open like based on the presentation, what do you think, like where do you think the AI agent world is going? Because I know for you, you have a PhD and I know you also use it for a lot of your own personal research. So where do you think the world is heading, especially with this new technology?
Well, for me, AI is something like beyond the scope of using those agents. For me, I'm trying to link the AI with the future generation of power plant and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find a link uh, how to improve the grid in order to accommodate the development of AI. We
Mm-hmm.
can see lots of gap between US and Australia, for instance. Australia is like highly dependent on natural resources and green energy. However, like you can see, like the US are investing a lot on developing nuclear power plants and the mini reactor because they have the vision that after uh, the coming years, the AI needs like a special uh, power uh,
Mm-hmm.
to accommodate all this development. So those small agents for me are like just like a tool to help people to solve minor problem, not major problem. I don't know how. science and computer science will develop this tool in order uh, to make it more useful into our daily life. But during our conversation, the first meeting, Professor Mark mentioned something very important, that why AI it's not adopted yet by a big corporation, because it's not trustful, uh,
Hmm.
and many of the answers are associated with scatters and most probably wrong answers. So
Hmm.
big corporation are trying to cut this or to test those agents in order to have special case studies, not case studies, special to make it to confirm it is related to their unique job.
Hmm.
So at the moment, AI, for me, it's just a simple tool to answer simple questions, not to solve big problems. I don't know what will happen later on. We cannot compare it to Tesla and the robot taxi and so on. It's something completely different, but this is AI for me at the moment.
No,
Maybe I
that makes
don't know.
sense. And it's
Yeah.
funny you talk about like hallucination fact.
Mm.
Actually, we just got an email yesterday that Deloitte got $500,000 in fees as a fine from the Australian government because the team there used AI and they built like a whole report and then they submitted that to the government. And then the government, once they reviewed it, they found that they were actually referencing and citing some of the papers that never existed. They were using some of the data in the papers that never was even there. So Deloitte got fined $500,000 because of that, and a few people got fired. So essentially, as I was saying, like you got to make sure that it's a tool and it's something that you use as a way to kind of incorporate your day-to-day tasks that you find mundane. Because for me, like emails is something that I really don't enjoy. Like scheduling meetings is something that I don't enjoy, and like summarizing notes and things like that. I think
Yeah.
that for those things, it's definitely very powerful.
Yeah.
But I feel like the use cases are just getting started. So I'm a very bullish person on AI, and I'm excited to see how the next 5 year goes. But while we are talking about this, I also wanted to kind of touch upon the monetization. So, for example, Perplexity always was actually a consumer product, but when they came out for an agent, they only released it to a limited set of users so that they can test it. So a lot of the things that you're going to learn in product management and other classes is like how do you validate and test your hypothesis? And it's very important when you're launching something for the users, you want to make sure that you're solving a problem and you're also building something that somebody actually wants to use. So they launched it as test for some of the users, then they launched it for premium users at $200 per month, and then they launched it for our students, and now they opened it for everybody. So those different tiered pricing actually help them create the buzz, for example, and that helped them actually grow their user base for this product. And from the numbers that I was looking at yesterday, I think they have active monthly users of about like at least now is about 50 million, which is actually great for a product that was launched this year. So when you're looking into building the next generation of products, you got to think about how you're going to monetize, how you're going to create that hype, and how do you actually solve the real problem. So that is one thing I wanted to add there. Um, Professor Mark, I don't know how much time I have. Wanted to open it up if anybody else has any questions, thoughts.
Hi, Karan. This is Sagar. I have a question.
Hmm.
So I work in the ML space as well. Now and I've tried Comet as well. But
Hmm.
unlike you, which when you said that you made it your default browser in the first day, the reason
Hmm.
why I haven't considered that is what if there's like a weaponized prompt injection? Like again, you're just summarizing your websites. Now, how is that being handled on a security front? Like I don't want to like give Comet access to my passwords only for someone to have some page which has like an invisible prompt and says, hey, send these list of passwords, export it, and send it via email because it does have access to your email. So
Hmm.
that's the main security concern that I have and why I have not like made it my default.
No, we actually looked into it yesterday. So actually, Google has added a layer of privacy, and then Cloudflare, which is like pretty much a whole platform that you use for surfing the web, they also launched kind of a whole privacy thing where if there are agents accessing the web, they have to pay Cloudflare and the server $10 per person or whatever, a fee. So these new things are coming out where security and privacy are becoming pretty important. For example, yesterday, last night, I opened Comet and I was just testing it for this presentation that, hey, find me the best Prime Day deal on Amazon and order it for me. So when you say order, I was hoping that it will actually pull my credit card, it will go into the bin, it will go to my card and press the buy now button. But essentially, Amazon has it stopped to a point where it will put it in your cart, but it won't let it buy. So those things are becoming kind of common from these different, like let's say big tech or different apps and use cases where they want the agents to be there, but they don't want the agent to take action on anything. So I hope that answers your question
So
because
while that is true, like again, it's not completely adopted yet. Again, this is a new
Mhm,
technology. A lot of
mhm,
sites may not have had these like guardrails in place. So if
mhm,
it is not available in certain sites, like that might expose the user to like a lot of vulnerability, a lot of risk.
mhm,
And even the article that I shared now from Brave,
mhm,
they have like done research on this and they informed Perplexity on this, and they
mhm,
did take those feedback and they did implement some of them. But I
mhm,
don't think it was conclusively like handled all the risk factors that they had raised. So
mhm,
again, like I guess in my personal opinion, until maybe another like 3 to 4 months until it stabilizes, I
mhm.
don't have any plans to like make it my default.
Yeah, makes sense. And I wanted it to be something that you can use it as a tool, and that's why I wanted to kind of show it. So yeah, again, as I was saying, like last year the AI world was very different versus now. Last year we were only talking about ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini. Now we are talking about agents. So I want you guys to make sure that you're staying on top of that new technology.
So a lot of students are in the job hunt phase, and we all know how labor intensive that is, especially finding the right jobs and applying for jobs and customizing the cover letters and doing all the background research, et cetera, et cetera. So how can Comet help in this regard? I mean, do you see that as a possible tool?
Yeah, actually, I can show you a real quick example. Um, for example, help me find a recruiter in Chicago from, I don't know, software engineering startup company. So this is just a small example. Yesterday, what I was doing is that, hey, I'm a new MEM student at Northwestern, and I want to get a teaching assistant job. Can you please find me all the professors' email address and what course they teach so I can reach out to them? And it
For some
essentially,
reason, you're not sharing anymore, by the way. I don't know what happened.
sorry.
There you go. We got it.
So essentially, it also kind of shows you like what it's doing, the steps it's taking, and where it's like going, what it's looking into. Right now, it's on my LinkedIn page and it's trying to find people. So yeah, Mark, to your point, like definitely that's one of the most easiest use cases, like to find recruiting opportunities, to find companies, to find people who are like actually hiring. And I also build like an automation kind of a pipeline where I also send them a in-mail with like a message saying that, hey, I want to work at this place. Can you please help me like understand like what are you looking for and things like that. So there are a lot of different use cases like that, especially for recruitment, because LinkedIn is something, at least for now, that they have given access to them.
So is LinkedIn Premium something worth investing in given Comet, or does Comet basically not need LinkedIn Premium?
I mean, I don't have a premium yet, so you don't really need premium. But I guess if you want to send people in mails and kind of like send a bunch of bulk cold in mails, then you would need premium.
Well, of course, bulk cold in-mails is probably the least effective way to communicate, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
because it's the least customizable and personal. It's more or less like junk mail, right?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. It found a recruiter at InstaWork.
Okay. How about the alumni database? Have you tried using it there or have you joined the Northwestern alumni database?
No, not yet, but that's a good point.
I think everyone on this call, being that you're students, you're already eligible to join, and that's a searchable database. So you can find Northwestern alumni. I think there's something like over a couple 100,000 of them around the world that I think are willing to interact with you. Um, and frankly, that's a great touch point, right? Just to say, hey, I'm a Northwestern student. I'm looking for a project, or I wanted to ask you some questions about your company, whatever it is, right?
Mhm. So yeah, in this case, I mean, also my prompt was not that good. So based on my query, it did find me a recruiter. But you can add like a better prompt. You can add better kind of filters that, hey, I want to work in this field in this company and so on.
All right. Any other questions for Karen? I think this is great stuff. I've been pointing my students to MIT Orbit. Has everyone been familiarized with MIT Orbit for doing market research and for exploring market opportunities for new technologies and new products? Something that probably MEM 430 has gone through with
Yeah,
product management. Yeah. Okay.
436.
436. Sorry.
Hmm.
So what's been the feedback? Is it working?
Yeah, it's a great tool actually. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah, Professor Birju Shah is gonna actually make them use it for their final exam.
Ah, excellent. Okay, great. I tend to use it at the beginning of the quarter so that people use it as a springboard. I don't want them to use it as a crutch per se, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, if it's working, that's great. Any other comments or questions? It'd be great if everyone had their cameras on, so I know that they're paying attention and they're watching us and getting something out of this, because I do want to spend the last half hour going through something I went through in my tech strategy class. So, Karen, I want to thank you for your time today. Any last thoughts about what's happening at Deloitte? Are you guys doing a lot of hiring? Do you sponsor? Any feedback there?
Yeah, I mean, currently it's pretty bad right now, especially in the US firm. Deloitte is not gonna sponsor anybody going forward, just because of the $100,000 maybe fees coming in.
Sure.
And then secondly, right now they're focused a lot on growth, so they just did a lot of like restructuring of the businesses. So a lot of it is just figuring out how everybody is aligned going forward. So I think we might do another round of layoffs. So I'm not sure about hiring more people.
Well, sometimes you need to lay people off to get the right skill set to come in. So you need to make space for them. But the 100K fee only applies to new H-1B applicants, not to F1s.
Yeah, there's a little gray area on that. It's until the whole law and the whole paperwork comes out from USCIS, at least from what it was written in the original kind of memo, it says any new H1s, it doesn't have like a filtration on like whether it's F1, STEM OPD, OPD or not. So I think we just have to wait. But most likely it's gonna be for people who are outside the country and applying for new H1Bs.
That's been the bulk of the, I guess, interpretations that I've seen so far. So I know there's a lot of ambiguity, and I know
Mhm.
every week there seems to be a new proclamation, but I actually honestly believe this administration wants to reward people who study here.
Yeah.
And this could be a way to do that, especially if they can narrow the pool of the H-1B candidates, right? So if 40% of the pool are outside, the US, and 60% are already here, right? Narrow it down to the 60%, right? And so to get to 85,000 from 300,000 is sure much more appealing than to get there from 500,000, right?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think things are changing quickly here.
Who knows? Maybe the world's going to be at war next week. Who cares? I mean, but hey, in the meantime, thank you for your time today, Karen. I know you're a busy person.
Yeah, thank you. And then I know, just wanted to drop a quick plug. I know we have a product management club meeting in a couple of hours. So we are really excited to have the new leadership team on board and have the new team to get their assignments rolling today. So we are excited to announce who's going to be the new 6 people leading the club.
No previews now?
No previews, but I'm hoping everybody can join.
Okay. All right, I hear you, Karan. Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, I am going to share my screen, and we will move on to a topic that I've shared with my class in technology strategy. I think this is pretty foundational to how technologists and business people and product managers see the world, right? So I'm going to call this business ecosystems, but it's really a discussion on the role of platforms and some examples of ecosystems that I've accumulated over the years. First of all, what is an ecosystem, right? Has anyone heard of the term biomimicry? Does anyone know what that term means? Amma probably does.
Yeah, I think it's basically using like phenomena or things that occur naturally in nature to design like products or solutions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you know that the original Thomas Edison laboratory was located next to a forest, and he would actually mandate that his people take a 1-hour walk every day to not just get exercise and fresh air, but to be inspired by nature, right? Did you also know that they went through nearly 1,000 different materials before they found the right material to put inside of a light bulb? And many of those materials were, again, inspired by nature. So an ecosystem is a community of living organisms, plants, animals, microbes that interact with each other and with their non-living environment in a specific area. These interactions form a dynamic system. So in essence, the output of one biological entity becomes the input of another, right? Or it becomes synergistic, as we say, right? So these are synergies that producers, consumers, and decomposers are all living in a form of harmony, right? That is synergistic, and basically, going back to the 1900s, Ford Motor Company, they used to get crates filled with things like seats and stuff that was supplied by their suppliers. They actually used the wooden crates in the production of their car. In fact, the floorboard of the Model T was actually built from a deconstructed crate. Okay, so if you go today to Subaru, right, in Indiana, where they build cars for the United States market, there's almost a zero waste policy. So everything that goes into the plant leaves the plant in the form of a product with very little, if any, waste at all, right? So you would expect a large plant like that to create, pretty large amount of waste. They actually pride themselves on producing almost zero waste. So you got the biotic factors, and you also have the abiotic factors, and these are the kind of the key elements of an ecosystem, right? That said, what is a platform, right? And this is my definition of a platform. I guess I'm opening it up to you guys if you have a better one or if you want to argue with it. But frankly, in my mind, it's a bundle of reusable technical assets, okay? One sentence, a bundle of reusable technical assets, the purpose of which is to efficiently apply a specific technology across a variety of applications or products, right? I'm a Hyundai guy. I drive a Kia. Kia is part of the Hyundai Motor Group. It's an electric vehicle, and I'm very proud that it's the eGMP platform, because frankly, I think it's a really strong platform. What is a platform? What is their platform, right? For them, it's a traction battery. It's the charging system, CCS, all the charging controls, right? It's got an inverter, which is a very complex device to bring AC and DC onto the same platform, and to manage AC and DC in and out throughout the entire platform. There's a BMS there, which manages the energy going into the battery and the temperatures of the battery. There's something called an infotainment system, which is common across the platform. And there's, of course, the drivetrain, which is the motors and the reduction gears and everything that's needed to make the platform run, right? And you can say, well, how is this being reused, right? What are the variety of applications? Well, let's start about why platforms to begin with, right? You want to use your development resources most effectively, right? Most efficiently. You want to be able to address the needs of multiple markets with a single platform. You want to spread the cost of development across multiple products, right? And multiple markets. You also want to share the risk of failure, right? So in the auto industry, They develop engines as a common platform across multiple companies, and they share the cost and they share the risk, right? So platforms are used in automotive, pharma, software, consumer goods, et cetera, et cetera. Any examples that you guys can think of platforms that maybe I haven't mentioned? I guess I'll try to go into one in the AI space in a few moments. If you're inspired, just jump in and let me know what you think might be a platform example that might be worth sharing. So what are not platforms? What do I call? I guess I'm calling these contrasts. What are the contrasts, right? So a derivative is a product derived from the platform, okay? They have small, usually cosmetic differentiators to help meet the needs of a market. Breakthroughs are products that define a whole new category. They are not necessarily platforms per se. They can be, but the iPhone is a breakthrough that's also a platform that Apple introduced, I believe, in 2007. And it defined a whole new category for them, not for the world, for them, okay? There are breakthroughs to the world, new to the world type breakthroughs, but most of the time the word breakthrough is meant for that company. It's specific to that company, okay? Before the Apple smartphone, there were probably 12, 13 years worth of smartphones. Many of them were dismal failures or partial failures. Motorola had many different smartphones, none of which really could hold a candle to the iPhone in terms of capability, right? And then the third contrast is outsourced. These are products where you purchase as a white label from another firm. Today, if you go to Costco, you will see a lot of white labeled products under the brand Kirkland, right? Those are sometimes pretty famous products that Costco has procured and white labeled for your benefits so that you can get it at a lower cost, right? So going back to Hyundai, right? If a platform is a bundle of reusable assets, right, and we're trying to efficiently access these across a variety of products, the four products that come to mind with the eGMP platform is the Ioniq 5, the Ioniq 6, the Kia EV6, and the Genesis GV60. These are all common platforms, right? They literally use, in many cases, much of the same software, almost the exact same hardware. They have very similar specifications. The only differences might be each car has a different coefficient of drag and maybe some different performance metrics on the road, on the track. But generally speaking, they're basically the same car with different form factors, right? Why? Well, the EV6 down here is supposed to be a little bit more sporty and at the same time more like an SUV. The upper left here is the Ioniq 5. This is a family, like traditional hatchback SUV. The Ioniq 6 is a bit more of a fastback as opposed to a hatchback. Much more sedan-like, right? And the luxury version of all this is the Genesis GV60 in the lower right. So each car is targeting a different market. We have 3 different brands up here and 4 different products, at least at launch. This was when the platform was launched in 2022 in the US. It was launched in Korea, I believe, in 2021. Thoughts or comments about platforms and derivatives? Each of these 4 cars, by the way, are derivatives, right? So when you're a product manager, you have to ask yourself, are you leveraging a platform? Are you creating a platform? Are you creating a derivative, right? Is there an explicit strategy? What markets are you planning to serve with your product, right? And as a project manager, I can tell you that those basic questions that I asked at places like WMS often stymied the product managers. We're supposed to develop a product, but they couldn't tell us what market it was for, right? Which is borderline insane. But if you think about the politics, the second they write something down, the second they become accountable for what I'm asking them, right? So to avoid accountability, they just wrote nothing down and avoided the question, right? So they were master politicians, but horrible product managers, right? And in a sense, they allowed the organization to define the products for them. In my mind, a strong product manager would take the lead and say, this is what the market needs are. This is the market we want to serve. These are the requirements that come from that, and then you can decompose everything from there. I'm hoping that's where Burju Shah is going with his class. Anyone want to comment? Is that the direction he's following? Who's taking product management? Nobody? Wow, okay, usually it's more than half the class. So
No, we are taking.
you're taking it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes,
is
yes,
this
yes.
pretty much, did I basically summarize his strategy in terms of, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, a similar one. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
product managers should drive the requirements. I mean, they shouldn't delegate that to everybody else. They shouldn't default and leave people up, you know, guessing as to
Exactly.
what market you're serving and what problem
Yeah.
you're solving and what
Yeah.
price point you want to be at. I mean, these are basic attributes, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
okay, so platforms can come from a variety of sources. A single company can define and develop one. Consortium, in the case of engines for you know, European markets, you got Volkswagen, you've got Mercedes, you've got BMW, you've got all these different companies. They will, on occasion, create a consortium of sorts for the purpose of creating a new engine. And that engine is so expensive, it can be well over $1 billion to build and test and certify to all the different regulations, a new, you know, internal combustion engine, right? As a result, that cost needs to be distributed across multiple companies, and then they share the engine and the engine design across those same companies, right? An industry could define a standard or a platform, and I'll get into those in a few moments. But one example that comes to mind is GSM, which was the original digital telephony, wireless telephony standard developed mostly for Europe. It was adopted mostly in Europe, but eventually came to the United States. Most of the phones you carry with you or you see on the street today are GSM derivatives, right? Iridium was a platform for satellite telephony, but I don't believe it was ever made a standard, an industry standard. So it was a standard within Motorola. So Motorola could design handsets and they could design infrastructure that would work together. The same was true with what I worked on, which was IDEN, which was a derivative of GSM, which was a company standard, but not a industry standard, right? Apple and Android are both in many ways industry standards for the development of a platform to host applications in a mobile telephony space, right? But what we're seeing with Android and Apple is those platforms are being expanded. Television sets and automobiles, et cetera, are now embracing this as a platform for hosting applications in a very light kind of operating system mentality, right? Anyone use LM Studio? This is what I would call SLM, right? Small language model, which smaller versions of the large language models that you guys are working with that are normally cloud-based, right? The advantage of LM Studio, and if you haven't used this, I would recommend you use it. I don't believe there's any cost to using it. If you have a powerful enough computer, you can host your own small language model and not have to worry about your client's data or your own proprietary information. Because frankly, once you've downloaded this platform as a host, right, you're operating independent of the internet. You could be air-gapped, right? So these language models can run in a locally hosted manner, no need to access the internet, and you can host models generally under 10 billion tokens. You would have to have a pretty fair amount of memory, you know, upwards of 64 gigabytes of RAM. I would recommend a machine with a GPU that has at least 6 gigabytes of VRAM. And my experience is this is much slower than the online versions. However, I don't have to worry about my client's data. I don't have to worry about my own data winding up in the cloud. So the scenario from earlier that says, hey, I don't want to put my passwords on a agent-based system, I get it, right? This isn't so much agent-based as it is more or less LLM shrunk down. You can see the various language models from DeepSeek to Qwen to Granite to Llama, all, in terms of, 3.2 billion parameters, 4 billion parameters, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see, yeah, this one's 32 billion parameters. Probably would not work on my machine. I have a laptop, not going to host that, right? I can host maybe something like DeepSeek, and DeepSeek actually runs quite well on my laptop. So If you have enough power, you can download LM Studio. I've been using it quite a bit. A very simple example, each of you has a resume. I think we've created by now a resume book for your entire cohort. We've glued it all together as one PDF file, one massive PDF file, about 100 pages long, right? If I look at it online, if I upload it to say, Copilot, what will happen is it says, sorry, I can't answer any questions about this because there's confidential information, personal information in this book. So it's all part of the privacy settings that the Copilots of the world and the ChatGPTs have, that frankly don't exist when you use, say, DeepSeek on an SLM, locally hosted model. I can ask it any question I want. How many students have Python experience? How many students have more than 10 years of industry experience? How many chemical engineers do I have in this batch, right? It can answer all those questions for me very reasonably, very quickly, whereas the online versions would never answer any of those, right? And if I'm a recruiter, I'm thinking I would want to be able to ask these questions, right? I would like to be able to search a whole bunch of resumes and find, the right skill set. And frankly, it's not so easy right now. The ecosystem strategy framework from BCG, basically, this is the question of why, or are we using the right tool with an ecosystem, right? Should we engage in an ecosystem? How can we identify viable opportunities? Which role should we play as a company in this ecosystem? And that's not a trivial question, right? If you've decided you're going to go into the energy market or the, let's say, battery market for EVs, you got to ask yourself, what piece of that market do you want to play in? Because if you try to be all things to all people, you will likely fail, right? So you have to find the right niche that leverages your skill sets and also leverages opportunities that exist in the ecosystem, right? So the fourth question becomes, how can we then build our own ecosystem? How can we win against competing ecosystems? And how can we capture value in that ecosystem? So hopefully these are questions that product managers are also asking, right? Because you're creating a new product, but it's hardly ever in a vacuum. It's almost always in a context, right? So it's very essential that you understand the context, the ecosystem that you're stepping into, right? How can we benefit as an ecosystem contributor, right? How about the flip side of that question? How can the ecosystem benefit from us, right? Because if there's no good answer to that, if you're just a redundant element, right, then you're probably not going to succeed. Lastly, how can our ecosystem strategy evolve over time? So the tech strategy question would be, what does your roadmap look like? How do you adapt as the ecosystem evolves, right? So I talked about EV batteries before. Here's a very simple version of it. You've got cell materials, you've got the cell itself, you've got the module or the pack, and then you've got the integration with the BMS, okay? So the four separate, if you will, verticals. Borg-Warner plays, in the early stages of the materials in the cell. Cattle, LG Chem, Tesla, and Ford all are working at the cell level and to some extent the pack level. Panasonic, Geely, Temsa, BYD, they're all more or less playing in the pack and the module level. And then integration is often done by the OEMs, right? The tier ones, right? So that would be the Daimlers, the GMs, the BMWs, the Geelys, and Volkswagens of the world. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way, a little bit more granular, would say, wait a minute, we got to go all the way back to mining. I mean, the materials come out of the ground, right? Who are the miners? And where are the miners? How about that, right? So understanding geographically where the miners are, where we're going to be able to do business, where we've got good relationships and good infrastructure, where we don't. But mining is one thing. The raw materials always have to be processed, right? Ironically, in the battery business, even though a lot of the materials don't necessarily come from China, graphite obviously comes from China, but there's a lot of lithium and nickel and cobalt that has very little to do with China until you get to the processing step, in which case you can't almost survive without China, right? So from a US perspective, this is the ecosystem, this is the supply chain that we need to build. Because if you think about the US, kind of narrow perspective, right? which is that kind of, I guess you would call that, is that navy blue or kind of medium blue, I guess, right? The medium blue is largely absent from this chart, right? There aren't too many slices here of medium blue. There's graphite processing, I see. There's battery production, tiny slice there, tiny slice of EVs. You know, for us in the US to try to dominate in this space, right? Especially when you've got players like China in the material processing space that are literally, you know, almost owning the market, right? So this is where you ask yourself, how, if you're going to create an opportunity, or if you see an opportunity, right, where are you going to play? How are you going to play? And who's going to supply you the materials you need to play, right? So if you're relying on China for material processing, and there's blockages from the government to access that, right? How can you work around that? Or can you build your own processing capabilities? So the EVs proper, these are the companies. And by the way, there's over 100 electric vehicle manufacturers in China alone. Many names you may never have heard of. BYD, I'm assuming everyone's heard of. BYD stands for Build Your Dreams, right? Warren Buffett had a major stake in BYD early on. He sold it. But you can see that they've got a significant number of units sold, 1.8 million, right? Growing at 211%. You can say, well, Tesla's in the game. Absolutely, we're in the game, but they're not growing at quite the same speed, only 40% growth. Companies like Geely, which you might know as Volvo in this country, right? General Motors, Stellantis, Volkswagen. I guess Volkswagen's number 3 and GM's number 4. The US does have some players, but the growth and the vast majority of the companies are actually outside the US, and they're coming from China, right? With a couple coming from Korea. And of course, Stellantis coming from Europe. Any thoughts about any of this? Trying to understand where these companies play, how fast they're growing, how big they are now, right? So it's not enough to know how much market share they have. You need to ask how much market share will they have given their growth rates, right? So I think this chart gives you both of those at the same time. Switching industries, let's go to Apple. You know, Apple's got a pretty elaborate ecosystem from you know, platform services to content to transactional and data services. You can see a lot of brands here that are very specific to Apple, from iTunes to music to pay to wallet and iCloud, etc. All of these are different sources of revenue, right? When people ask, why did Apple succeed where Motorola failed? Apple was able to visualize this and to envision this and to build an ecosystem almost from scratch. I don't think Motorola ever had that kind of vision. I was there. We thought of ourselves as a radio manufacturer. We built phones and we built infrastructure. But this whole ecosystem here was not something we could easily conceptualize, right? I think we're on the verge of AI creating its own ecosystems here that are going to become equally complex, equally opportunistic, if you will, in terms of creating opportunities, but also creating opportunities for you guys in terms of either starting businesses, joining companies, starting companies, etc. So Amazon is even more complex than Apple. I mean, Amazon has a very entrepreneurial attitude. They're very organic, right? Meaning you're allowed to grow and build your own business where you stand at Amazon, even when you're competing internally with other companies inside Amazon or other organizations within Amazon that are doing the same thing. And they might be doing it better. And often there's not a lot of interaction between them. So Amazon's opportunistic, entrepreneurial kind of culture is great for starting stuff, but not necessarily consolidating stuff and to leveraging what you've got across that organization. I don't know where to start with this. This is such a complex chart. You've got Amazon Web Services at the 6 o'clock position at the bottom. You've got their retail operations at the top with you know, Amazon Whole Foods and Amazon Fresh and all the other brands. Amazon Go. If you're ever at the train station, you'll probably see Amazon Go. music, studios, Prime Video, right? Healthcare. Did you know they're in the healthcare business? You know, they're in the pharmaceutical business. They're actually a pharmacy competing with Walgreens. It's totally online, right? Thoughts about the complexity here of Amazon, right? When it says IoT, that's Internet of Things. So if you've got a device, an Alexa device, for example, right? It's probably connected to your doorbell and your cameras and some of your appliances and your, front door locks, et cetera. So there's a lot of interaction here with your home. This is exactly what they want, right? They're collecting data the same way Tesla and Google are collecting data. You are generating that data, right? And these low-cost devices are collecting it at your detriment, if you want to think of it that way, but to the benefit of Amazon, right? This is a more simplified, just looking at their brands, the consumer-facing, market-facing brands that you are probably familiar with. If not, you will be soon. So from a process view, right, looking at, let's say, parking management in a city, right? You've got parking management systems, you've got fleets, you've got the city visitor center, you've got the cars here, the owner, driver of the cars, you got valet companies, IT department, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a complex system here, right? Ironically, in Chicago, this became a very political, controversial situation because the parking meters were basically sold off to a consortium of companies that spent a few $1 billion for something that was worth probably 10 times that, right? So I guess you're smiling. You must be familiar with that story.
Yes, I did hear this, and I drive in the city too. So
As drivers, if you were here before and if you were here after, and you probably noticed the difference, you went from 50 cents for an hour, maybe up to $2 or $3 for an hour.
right, yeah,
So, I mean, that simple stop at the grocery store is no longer the 50-cent parking situation. Now you're looking at $2 or $3, right, or more. So, and all of it was credit card based and convenience, so that it could siphon your money that much faster and that much easier, right? So here's an industry constellation. If you got Amazon, Oracle, Google, Microsoft, right, and IBM and SAP and all their various, ecosystems amongst themselves, right, and the connections between them. And we're already, we start plotting out. You've got Oracle plugging into OpenAI, right, making investments, et cetera. So these are, this is just the mobility space. This is where I spent most of my career. And you've got, from car dealers and battery manufacturers and OEMs and public transport. And, it's an amazing space, right? There's a lot of ways to map this out. And the whole point of this, I guess, is for you to understand the bigger picture, how you play in the bigger picture, how you can fit and succeed, understanding who are potential partners, who are potential competitors, and how your roadmap should evolve within the context of that bigger ecosystem. Any thoughts? All right, I've been trying to get some additional guest speakers. My next one I'm thinking of is Professor Julian Cheng. He's going to be teaching next quarter a combined course in venture capital and entrepreneurship. And I wanted him to spend maybe an hour with you guys talking about not just the course, but what his VC's been up to. They just had a big infusion of cash, right? So they're investing in some robotics-based startups right here in Chicagoland. So I'm sure he's going to want to talk about that. And of course, opportunities with startups and how maybe you could be a startup yourself one day. So with that, I'll let you go. Any last thoughts? You guys have been pretty quiet today, probably overwhelmed with homework. Hang in there. It gets easier, especially after the midterms. So get your midterms done, and then let me know if I can help you in any way. I am trying to create some projects that might be funded, so you guys have a way to earn some money on campus. I know that's one of your concerns. I've got 2, maybe 3 projects that might have some funds behind them. So let me finish that up, dot all my I's, cross the T's, and get that out to you in maybe the next week or so, okay? Otherwise, hang in there and stay warm if you can. Take care.
Thank you, Mark.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Take care.